Hello! I'm here today with my second book haul in July. All of these books, 14 of them, I did not have to pay a single penny for since I was visiting my grandmother 2 weeks ago, and she is hoping to move house this year. So she is totally frenzied trying to get rid of everything, and I tried to talk some sense into her with some things, but with books I very selfishly said yes, it was a good idea to get rid of as much as possible. So she sent me into all these different bookcases that are scattered around the house and told me to take whatever I wanted. I am also hoping to move some point in the next year, but I am less sensible than my grandmother is. So 14 books. I'm starting off with the ones that mean more to me, and then we get more and more obscure as we go on. Hopefully you will know some of these books and you can tell me something about them, especially those that I've never heard of before. The first is We Are All Made of Glue by Marina Lewycka, who apparently was born in Germany, much like me, but grew up in England. I didn't spend my entire childhood in England, but some of it. So that's interesting. This book I had from the library maybe a year ago, but just didn't end up reading. This follows a middle-aged woman, I believe, Georgie, whose life falls apart and she becomes entangled in the life of her elderly neighbour who claims her as next of kin when she is admitted to hospital or just ends up in hospital. I'm not sure, but I think this might be a sort of quirky community neighbourhood, finding your alternative family kind of book when your own family sucks. So happy to find that one. Then I have 2 books by Toni Morrison. I already have an unread Toni Morrison book on my shelf, and I've dabbled into it and find it quite difficult to get into. So these are probably not wise picks, but my eyes were bigger than my reading stomach. The first is Paradise by Toni Morrison, which from the blurb I gather follows a sort of patriarchal, violent community which sort of enforces their law and horribleness on a group of women. And then I also have A Mercy by Toni Morrison, which is more recent, at least in the 2000s, and this one follows a young girl's life experience of being sold off as a slave as an 8-year-old, so 17th century America. Both of these I think will be really hard hitting and not very nice to read. If I can get down with her writing style a bit more, I think they are both really interesting, though I'm not sure which one now. I think Paradise is listed on Goodreads as part of the Toni Morrison trilogy, which are books that can be read separately, but I don't feel entirely happy doing so, and this one is listed as the third, so that's a bit unfortunate that I found that out. Yeah, then next I have Amsterdam by Ian McEwan. Ian McEwan I really, really like. I've read some of his books. Amsterdam is not one of them. This is one of his earlier works, I believe, about 2 friends and former lovers of the same woman who meet at her funeral. It's a short little book, and I do like having those when I'm in a bit of a slump. And Ian McEwan's language is always just so beautiful. Additionally, I have found that I've liked his more recent books less, so I am glad that there are still some older ones for me to discover. Then I have Moral Disorder by Margaret Atwood, her 2006 collection of short stories. I've never read any short stories by Margaret Atwood. I am, as we speak, about to wrap up reading Alias Grace by her and really, really liking it. And I really like The Handmaid's Tale. I heavily disliked her book called The Heart Goes Last. So short stories will be yet another way for me to find out whether I like Margaret Atwood or not. The next book I was really excited to find and really happy that my grandmother is so selfless and let me have it, and that is Unburied by Jesmyn. This one is a 2017 release about a family, mainly a mother and her 13-year-old son, I believe, who go go on a road trip to see the boy's father, who is about to be released from prison. A friend of mine, a good friend of mine, whose reading recommendations I value very highly, just read this and said she loved it. And it's a really, really nice hardbook cover. So I tried my luck in getting this from my grandmother's house, and she was very nonchalant about it and said, it was good, take it. This 2014 book, All the Light We Cannot See by Anthony Doerr, is the next book that I salvaged. I feel like everyone's read this. This is about a blind French girl and a teenage boy whose paths cross during the Second World War. Due to the content and the story, this is probably super emotional and pretty at times. Loads of people have read this. It is not something that tempts me so much. I don't love World War II stories, and historical fiction is also hit and miss for me, and I do not love stories where teenagers or young teenagers are at the center of the story, because I'm always torn between either finding it authentic in the voice, but then I struggle with finding it slightly young or it's sort of infantile, or I think it is too grown up and I don't find it believable, but I enjoy more grown up thoughts more. That's a complicated way of saying cool find, super popular book. Not sure if I'm going to get to this very quickly though. Should I? The next one is slightly intimidating because it's such a chunky book, but this one I am very, very interested in. This is On the Move by Oliver Sacks. Oliver Sacks, a fabulous neurologist and writer who wrote books like The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat, something along those lines. I read a book of his called Musicophilia, which is, all of these books are collections of the accounts of stories that he, are collections of accounts of patients that he's had. And seeing as he is a neurologist, he has very interesting cases of patients. This is his memoir. Unfortunately, he deceased not too long ago, and this just follows his life from England to America. And my dad read this. This was actually my dad's copy that he had given to my grandmother, and now I am getting from her. And he said it was excellent. Super interesting guy and well written as well. Next is The Woman's Room by Marilyn French. This 1977 feminist classic was pushed on me by my grandmother because she just read it in her literature club that she's a member of. They were reading feminist literature, which is so cool. I have a very cool grandmother. I don't know much about this. I think it is basically just an exploration of women in the 60s and 70s and how they are trying to break out of their traditional family mother molds that have been enforced on them. My grandmother said there were a few elements in this book that she did not appreciate necessarily, but she still thought it was a very interesting and important read. The next is the winner of the 2007 Man Booker Prize, The Gathering by Anne Enright. I had this on my radar and just forgot about it. The story is about the gathering of a group of siblings who all come together to mourn the loss of their brother. And without wanting to give anything away, I haven't read it, but my expectation is that this deals with a few quite tough topics. It's alluded to that there is some kind of abuse in the troubled story and background of their brother that has passed away. And I'm really interested to read this. This is also a hardback, but one of those that, I would have taken either way. Sometimes I actually think hardbacks are a bit constricting in their rigidness, but I am looking forward to reading that one. The next book I grabbed was one that I would have, I think, never stumbled across if it hadn't been in the bookshelves at my grand's place. This is Maya Angelou's Even the Stars Look Lonesome, 1996 published essays of hers. The only thing that rang a bell is that she is the author of a book called I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, which I believe is a sort of biographical pondering on the role of Black women and their experiences and their constrictions in the social life. Trying to sound fancier there, masking the fact that I don't really know what this is about. A collection of essays of hers, which is also not too long and dense and might be quite interesting. Also, I love how old-fashioned this whole book is. Yeah. Then I have Sebastian Barry's, I've forgotten the title now, The Whereabouts of Eneas McNulty? Not sure how you pronounce that name. This is about a man who, an Irish man who struggles with the Northern Irish Republic of Ireland conflict after the First World War, and how he is sort of caught up in the two opposing sides. I'd never heard of this. I don't know much about that time, if I'm frank, but I like the cover. Anything with water on the front, I'm positively biased towards, so I'd be really quite curious to hear if anyone has read something by Sebastian Barry, in particular this book. The second to last on the homestretch book that I got is The World's Wife by Carol Ann Duffy. This is a poetry collection which I think just looks so beautiful. This is a collection of poems, all written from the point of view of the female personalities behind or next to male personalities, important characters in history. Yeah. I don't read a lot of poetry, but I thought that concept sounded really cool. And I just really couldn't say no to this book. I think it's so beautiful. So, there's even more really, really beautiful. Sorry to get super distracted, but on the inside, it has some other books. But now I might have to collect them. I'm really, really chuffed about this one. And then finally, the last book I got is Fateless by Imre Kertész, I guess. This is a Hungarian author, and even though this is fiction about a Hungarian teenage Jew who is forced to go to Auschwitz, it is strongly autobiographical, I imagine, because the author himself was imprisoned at Auschwitz. Having gone to school in Germany, of course, have learnt a lot about the Nazis and the horrific time in Germany, but we do, to a certain extent, I think, in high school, discard the effects on other neighbouring countries. It's not like we don't do it at all, but far less so than geographic Germany at the time. So this one I'm also really interested to read. My grandfather was Hungarian, so I imagine that's why it made it onto my grandmother's bookshelves. And I'm, again, really, really happy to have found this one, a book that I probably wouldn't have gravitated towards in the bookshop, but in the bookshop of my grandmother's household, this is one that I am really, really excited for as well. That was it. All the 14 books that I grabbed as quickly as I could and stuffed into the car to drive home with. I think there are some really beautiful finds within this collection, but please point me in the right direction. Say if you've loved any of these and you want me to give them a go. I'd love to hear your thoughts. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.